Hi, everyone. Before we get into Jamestown and Plymouth specifically, let's talk about the historical context. Let's use 1600 as the date. Just to give you some historical context of what was going on in North America during this time. Back to that term, multiple causation, where there were a lot of different factors that led to sort of migration to the Americas and also to these early settlements that we will be studying. Okay, one of them is this idea of mercantilism. All right, if you remember, the idea was that countries or nations were competing for colonies, and they were also trying to accumulate as much gold as possible. Okay, and their wealth sort of equated, or power equated to how much gold and then later on resources that they could acquire. Another factor would be this the sort of chaos, economic, social, and political chaos that was going on in Europe. Okay, this is post feudalism. This is post the bubonic plague of the 1300s. And Europe was really sort of an unsettled place at this point. There was a lot of power struggles going on, especially between the church and the different the division in the church between Catholics and Protestants. There was a lot of revolution and wars going on, a lot of, like I said, a lot of power plays. So this was not a very safe place in Europe. It was not a very free place in Europe, so to speak. So a lot of the early migrants that came from Europe were actually religious refugees. They were being persecuted, specifically the Puritans, right? If you remember earlier in your school days when you learned about the Puritans, so religious freedom. Okay. So it's not an accident that this idea shows up in our sort of in our Constitution, right? Okay, so we have mercantilism, chaos in Europe, religious freedom, specifically from the Anglican or the church. If you remember, Henry VIII's church in Europe, in England, excuse me, and a lot of those people fled to the Netherlands, and then a lot of them ended up migrating to the New World. And then you have the splintering of the Christian church with Catholics and Protestants, and you had all these new Protestant sects, the Calvinists, the Lutherans, the Presbyterians, so on and so forth. Okay, you had, like I said, this idea of you had European colonization going on, right? We talked about that in Global One with the Spanish and the Portuguese beginning it, and then sort of the Dutch, and then the English and the French. Okay, we see that all over, not just in North America, but all over the world. Okay. If you remember the Spanish Armada, 1588, right? England becomes a powerhouse of the seas because of that battle. Okay, sort of dethroned Spain because of this. And then you see the growth of commercial capitalism or investment capitalism. Okay, so you see this. We talked about mercantilism earlier, but then we see this sort of introduction and sort of progression into investment capitalism. Okay, and investment capitalism is just a fancy way of saying that you are investing money to make money. Right? You need money to make money. Okay, and how was that going to be done? That was going to be done by acquiring colonies, acquiring resources, and sort of infusing those resources into the world market. Okay, so you see the emergence of joint stock companies, right, where people own stock, and that's how these sort of early settlements were actually funded. Okay. All right. Yeah, so again, a combination of all these factors, multiple causation, led to these early English settlements of Jamestown in 1607, and then also later on Plymouth in 1620. And then the story sort of progresses from there. But just to be familiar with these, concepts and how they all played a role in the origins of these early English settlements. Thanks everyone for listening.